It's like every 10
Keep
minutes.
cameras on just so that you know.
There's another.
All right, it's 8 o'clock. Let's boogie. We will call the April 28th Economic Development Committee meeting to order.
Fred Levers,
Here.
Dave Boucher,
It's actually ordering
Turner,
nice.
Here.
Bill Jenks,
Here.
Sure.
Thank you. Now, does everybody know Kevin Cuzzo?
Yeah.
Good morning. And here's Chris.
Good morning. Morning, Chris.
Turnberry Construction.
Turnberry Construction, yes.
All right. Are there any public comments this morning? Hearing none, we'll move on to the agenda, and our first item is 1011 North Park Road.
So I think you all know Mr. McCarthy. He has bought 1011 North Park Road, which is where Stratix is currently operating. They will be moving out of that building to 200 North Park Road once their fit out is complete.
And that's the anticipated, what, around the turn of the next century or something?
No,
The latest from Brent is that they'll be out by February 1st of 2030.
Wow, why is that taking so long?
well, I know they're gonna have
Well,
a steel topping ceremony soon because
Keep changing
we'll
the
be
color of the
invited
walls.
to that.
They had some structural issues on the main support columns in there that the structure engineer wouldn't let anyone in the building for 4 months till they fixed. And that was one of the issues that they,
I'll do it.
apparently where that roof, the old roof was leaking when Reading Hospital was in there, and they went out and they were fixed it. And water got in the concrete columns and separated the rebar from the concrete. So they had to do remedial repairs on those columns on the top 3 floors. So
That's
that's,
rather serious.
yeah, it was-
Rather expensive.
yeah. I don't think they wanted that public knowledge what was going on, but it's all fixed, resolved now from what we've heard.
We'll keep it anonymous.
I think everyone knows now, but. So that's why the date, first he told me June of this year, June of 22. Originally December of last year, then June of 22,
Next year.
now he's looking February 23.
So anyhow.
Some of the problem was there weren't many people working there to work at the site.
They didn't hire Turnberry, so that's probably the problem.
Yeah, DMV's doing that project.
The building outside, it just didn't make any sense.
So Jim is going to be coming in, we're actually gonna be discussing his waiver request at the planning commission meeting on Monday. He's submitted a request for a waiver for land development since there's minimal, addition of square footage, and that's just for 2 stair towers.
Right, we're adding 2 stair towers on the south side of the building.
But the overall intent is to develop the
So-
property and also do you want the laser pointer?
Sure.
Should be charged.
What was that? Sorry. What was it?
Stratus.
No, before that.
The hospital.
It was an Aramark.
Oh, that's.
It was originally an Aramark building. So, which one's easier for you guys? This one or that one? The big one? That one? So Park Road is here on the right side. So currently, everything is, this is the first floor plan, everything you see in gray is what McCarthy Engineering will actually be moving in and occupying. The one thing is, this corridor here actually shouldn't be gray, that's for the apartments. In the back, this is where Stratus currently has their 24-hour response center and their warehouse. So what we were looking to do on this floor was to have an entrance in through the north side, and then there would be 5 apartments here. The fitness center for the whole building will be located here. Elevator court here to take up and down the 2nd floor. These actual couple, this would be the rental office. We're gonna convert this to like their Amazon, package receiving, all the mail kind of stuff in here, so they don't have to leave it outside of the end of that. And then, obviously by code, you'll see we have to have this stair tower accessing, and then this one. Comes a little more evident if you go to the next page for the 2nd floor. So there will be 5 units proposed on the 1st floor in the rear of the office.
Hold on, I need to pull up your second floor plan, I thought
Oh, it should be under the same PDF, it's just the next page.
never mind. There we
Should be page 2, okay. So again, Park Road's out here, and then we have the stair tower, move the corridor through with the elevator, and the elevator here. So, it's essentially the layout. They're mostly, for all intents and purposes, 2 bedrooms, but we don't have a window in the 2nd. bedroom, you have to call it an office or den. But there's a few one bedrooms, a lot of one bedroom with offices and a few two bedrooms.
How many
For a
total?
total of 21, 16 on the upper floor and 5 on the lower floor. When I originally bought the building, I was planning on not putting an addition on it, I was just gonna rent the back half, and probably not surprising Fred, maybe surprising, there's no rental market, even in Wyomissing, for any type of warehouse, any type of office, even office blocks, we even offer to convert the whole warehouse to office, 0 interest at all. Because I bought this building from Brent, July 1st of 22, but we had it under agreement for a year before that.
21.
I'm sorry, July 1st, 21, we bought it. We had it under agreement for a year before that. That got delayed by his deal with Hettinger falling apart and then coming back together on 200 Park. That's essentially the project. We do need a conditional use, not for the apartments above, but by technical reading of the overlay district for the 5 behind. Because the way, I think this meets the intent of the ordinance, the way the ordinance is written, it says it wants street frontage, first floor, retail, or professional office with apartments above. That's what the building will look like, but it's 19,000 square feet. McCarthy Engineering doesn't need 19,000 square feet for ourselves. We really only need about 8. We're gonna keep about 11 just because that's the way the building breaks out. And then that rear area is what we were hoping we'll be able to get a conditional use for to add those 5 apartments in there.
So Jim has submitted the, excuse me, the conditional use application, the application fee. We'll need to schedule that hearing. It's not a zoning hearing board hearing, it is a borough council hearing. I'm not aware in my 14 years here we've ever had one. So I think this will be a little new for everyone. But that would be a special meeting of council held similar to a zoning hearing, so stenographer, transcript, sworn under oath. Jim presents his argument as to why the relief should be granted, and then council would go into executive session to discuss the merits of the application, the reason why, come out and make a decision.
Has that been scheduled or no?
No, I would suggest we wait until after Monday's planning commission meeting just to make sure the waiver request is granted, which, again, Steve Hoffman from Great Valley Consultants, if you recall, at the April council meeting, we appointed him as the alternate conflict engineer. So he sent me a draft of his review letter last night. I requested one small change to it, but he will be recommending the waiver to the planning commission. And do you want the exterior?
Yeah, and I'll just, so we're still tweaking the floor plans and all those type of things, you gotta get stuff aligned with the columns, but we did do some exterior elevations, that's actually the rear of the building, the back parking lot. Yeah, we're trying, so that's looking from Park Road, as if you drove up to the first driveway, looking down our driveway now, so we're trying to give it kind of a really modern, sleek, clean look. We want it to be something that hopefully will spur some facade improvements and redevelopment along that North Park Road corridor, especially our neighbor to the west, the Inn at Reading. We would love if they would maybe follow suit and do something similar.
I'm guessing they will.
Are you, have you had this delusion long now?
Well, I said it was a hope. And this will be like coming down the driveway, so you can sort of see where they imposed our logo. That would be the McCarthy office entrance with the apartment entrance down a little further.
Jim,
Yeah.
where that McCarthy sign is, that's where the entrance is to Stratix, not to.
Yeah, that's the entrance, that's the entrance if you go into, say, like, the Christmas party, right? Yeah, we're not moving any of the entrances over on that side of the building. In fact, we're not really moving any of them. There's kind of, if you're looking from the church and where Spot Stevens and McCoy's old building. So, we're trying to make it look nice, and we're proposing balconies for some of the units on the upper level.
Also reduction of impervious.
Yeah,
It's gonna green it up.
Yeah, we're cutting out, there's a lot of macadam there that's unnecessary, so we're trying to, even on the plan, we showed, I think, like a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot reduction of impervious. And as we kind of are looking at more, I think we're gonna actually take out some more impervious and add some more landscaping and some wanna add some picnic areas out in the back for the residents, in addition to the fitness center, we're thinking about putting like, I don't know, cornhole courts out there, or something, you know, probably whatever they want, we'll add for them, but.
I know that drops down from Park Road, so
Right, so technically, and our solicitor overruled my interpretation of this, there is a lower level in the back, which I said, well, technically that could be ground floor. But in all actuality, it's a garage, it's a double garage bay. So,
but the way the apartments will lay out then, is there a view you see over, I don't remember exactly how Ringwood fits in there. Can you see toward Milton or something?
you could probably see the top of the mountain from that second floor, because you're right, the first floor apartments in the back are 9 feet higher, the floor's 9 feet higher than the part they've been grade. They're probably about even with the second floor of Wynwood, elevation wise. And not to disparage Wynwood, we're also gonna be ripping out all the landscaping along Wynwood and putting in a lot nicer, more dense landscaping. We'd rather our tenants not see Wynwood.
Makes sense.
We're trying to target, you know, the,
I like the plane.
What's the problem?
Yeah, there's a
Plane.
plane.
I don't know that, I have to ask Tim House why he put a plane in the, rendering.
An airport's nearby.
The airport is nearby.
This is something this
And I'll have passenger service again soon.
Well, we think, I mean, we're trying to do something really nice, we think it'll spruce up that whole, obviously we want it nice. But JMRP is the entity that owns the building, and they'll be leasing to McCarthy Engineering, but, you know, for all intents and purposes, I'm JMRP. So, but we want a nice product for our residents and for our employees. That would be if you're at Wynwood looking up. So Fred, there kind of gives you the elevation, you can see the low ground floor man door, and there's 2 garage doors. And then above that, the all glass, that's the fitness, center, and then that would be the next floor of apartments above that.
Is that the existing loading docks, though?
Yes, we're gonna clean that up, we wanted to actually keep them in one shape, one for our use if we get like a large format copy delivery or something like that. But also, we're trying to figure out a way to tie that in with the easy access to the elevator, so when people move in and out, they can come in and use some type of loading dock and get right in the elevators and not tear up the stair towers and the hallways. And then we'll probably, where it shows all that macadam around that area, that's one of the areas we plan on to add some landscaping and green that area up, put some potential picnic tables and outside gathering areas in.
Are the garage access for your use?
Yeah, the garages we'll be parking the McCarthy Engineering survey vehicles in there so that no one steals our stuff at night.
Good looking building.
Thanks.
Kevin, do you want to say anything?
No, I came along just in case there were any questions on the construction. I'm working one right now for myself on Penn Avenue, West Reading. So that's how Jim and I started collaborating a little bit on the contemporary, a little more contemporary design,
Right.
more upscale, and that's really.
And what is the thing on the roof? Is that like a
In West Reading?
elevator tower? Yeah, in West Reading.
Yeah, there's a spiral staircase going from the 3rd floor apartment to a rooftop deck.
What was that?
And in West Reading.
Across from G&A,
Oh,
The new.
the one they're building now.
one next to the old A to Z.
Yep, couple floors up.
And if you're going toward the city, you can see most of the roof is ridiculous.
I never looked that close.
Just building one.
Committee, anybody have any questions?
Looks nice.
So we are suggesting that we ought to consider a recommendation to council to grant the conditional use thing, which will be the subject of that upcoming hearing.
Make a motion.
A motion,
Second.
a second by Keith. Are there any further questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody contrary minded? Go.
Thanks.
On to the next step.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As long as you stick with tradition, have a Christmas party there too.
That's why Brent doesn't want to leave till February. He
It's gonna leave a mess.
said that. Said he's gonna trash the office before he leaves. Well, that was one of the other things. We actually had enough parking to get, I should have said this. We had enough parking to add another floor on top. But we did the geotech and all, and essentially we would have had to ruin the office finish. We'd have had to basically gut the offices and put more columns in and do all that. We were trying to preserve, because Brent spent a lot of money on the fit out up in the office section of that building, which is one of the reasons why we bought it. But we didn't have to redo all that when we moved in, so that's why if anybody has, you know, they were allowed to go to 80 or 100 feet. We only wanted to go that on the floor structurally. I loved to have gone 2 floors. I think that would have been, you get to like a number where you're managing apartments, and like 40 is a lot easier than 40. You can afford to hire a manager person. 21, they call Jim's cell phone at 2 in the morning when the hot water heater doesn't work. But that's why we only went with 1 additional level on the bar.
All right, the next item on our agenda today is the concept of the short-term rentals, Airbnb.
So Airbnbs are already happening in the borough. Craft Goods has gotten multiple calls, especially in the past 6 to 8 months, from people saying, hey, I'm operating an Airbnb at my property. What do I need to do, if anything? And, you know, those are just the ones that are actually calling us to find out if there are any regulations. Currently, there's nothing specifically prohibiting them, so we're treating them as rental properties, meaning they need a rental inspection, but that means we're only going in once every 2 years. I read this outside article that I believe was shared with the committee back in March, and I shared it with Chris and Fred. It was an interesting take on what other communities have done. I also thought there was a funny comment in here about people coming to see a deer on pavement, which could fit nicely into why I'm missing with some of the issues that we're having as well. But what one of these communities decided to do was allow Airbnbs, but limit them to the commercial zoning districts, which, I'm talking to Fred and Chris about this a little bit further, I would support allowing them in our C1 zoning district, which is commercial but also allows residential by right. I believe the committee also received this Airbnb rules and laws, regulations, and taxes, you know, related to what's going on specifically in the state of Pennsylvania. I also found a model ordinance that's kind of just a template for use within municipalities in Pennsylvania to kind of set a baseline as to how they want the program to work. I don't necessarily want any specific action from the committee today, other than to say you are, you know, for or against regulating them in some fashion. My concern is we could get a property where every week someone or someone's, the tenants are changing out. We're not a hot spot like, you know, say Miami or San Diego or San Francisco, but obviously this is occurring now and there's interest. I can't find specific properties because you actually have to go in on the website and book them to get the address. So it's a little challenging to regulate from the back end without having something up front that says, yes, we allow it within these parameters, this is what the requirements are. I just think it would give us a little bit more teeth, you know, if in the future we would have any type of problem with it. And to give you an idea of where the C1 zoning district is, it's the north side of Penn Avenue, the west side of State Hill Road, and a very, very, very small portion of Wyomissing Hills where the highway goes out.
The problem's gonna be to enforce it, because people just won't tell you, and you're not gonna know.
Yeah, but
And the honest ones are gonna, they're gonna come and tell you, and if you don't like what they do, they're just gonna do it anyway, do something, just not tell you.
that's the argument we got when we put the rental inspection program into place. And I mean, yeah, you're always gonna have people that skate under the radar, but you'd be surprised how many of them we find out by accident.
Also, I would say, there can be obnoxious situations where the owner rents to the wrong kind of people for the wrong kind of events. You know, some people use them as party houses. And if you have an offensive situation, if we have regulations regulations, it's gonna be easier to take action. If we don't have regulations, it's not gonna be easy to do anything about it. So, even though, some people might try to evade the regulations, I think having regulations will give us the tools we need to manage the ones that are, gonna be a nuisance.
Didn't we look like 2 years ago, somebody put Airbnb in their phone for wine missing and came up with 22 properties?
I don't know that it was 2 years ago, but I mean, I do remember we
Yeah.
briefly discussed it at this committee before.
The only thing, there definitely has to be regulation. I mean, I could foresee a lot of Penn State students renting this for a party, and God forbid, we don't want a situation that happened out in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago.
So I think there would be two ordinances if the committee wants to move forward with a project on this subject. We need an amendment to the zoning ordinance to identify where it would be permitted and defining what it is. But then the other ordinance, and I would say something like what Michelle has shown us from Monroe County, would be sort of a health and safety type regulation that would have permitting requirements and operational requirements. One of the benefits of this is that we could enforce a regulation like this to existing B&Bs. Health and safety regulations are not subject to the grandfathering concept that applies in zoning. So if we have people who could prove that they already have a B&B in operation in the borough, they could beat our zoning change that limits them to the C1 district. However, the regulation on how it must operate would apply throughout the borough, even to existing B&Bs.
Where does the line change between short-term leasing and Airbnb?
That's where I think we're gonna have to define it. I mean, and that's one of the things I was gonna request input from the committee. We can limit it. Do you want it 1 night, 2 night, week, month? What do you wanna define a short-term rental as?
My reaction is you wanna treat it like I did billboards. Limit the, find a spot,
Frequency.
find a spot that is, least possibility of it happening.
I mean, for,
Maybe
1 or 2
industrial?
nights, we got plenty of
Industrial.
hotel rooms available for 1 or 2 nights.
I'm sorry?
We got plenty of hotel rooms for 1 or 2 nights, but somebody wants to come in or is working corporately for a week or more, then I could see the benefit of doing that.
Where does
But-
the residence inn fall?
But
They're a hotel.
I would propose that anybody
Defined as a hotel.
who wants it for 1 or 2 nights, it's a party. We're using it as a party house.
Well, one criteria would be the number of days of the rental arrangement. Another would be the type of property that it is. Obviously, you don't want this to, we're not gonna treat the embedding as a B&B, but, so it would have to be structures that are established as a single-family dwelling, or even a townhouse. But I'm chuckling at your comment because I think it's, if we were to say that you could only put them where the billboards are located, for example, I don't think that would be enforceable because
Exclusionary
it's too
zoning?
restrictive. Yeah, because in order for it to be valid, it has to be something that can practically occur.
My intent of bringing that up at all is because you couldn't outlaw billboards completely, you must provide for something.
That's right. Thank
So
you.
where's the tiny little corner you can provide Airbnb that wouldn't hurt anything?
Thank you. Thank you all.
I mean, I could also see at some point in the future, there's a lot of very nice, large houses in the residential areas of the borough that have owners that are out of town for 6 months. And the wrong person coming in and saying, wow, look at this mansion that me and 15 of my friends can go to on spring break and throw some wild party that's next door to, some other long-standing member of the community that now has a party house in the backyard.
The people that can go away for half the year are not gonna be doing runs. Don't need the money.
currently, I would say yes, but our demographic is changing. We've seen some of the larger properties go into different hands in the past couple of years.
It is just a very minor point, Chris, is Air, AIRBNB, the correct terminology, or is that kind of a trademark company name? What is?
It's like ordering a coat.
Yeah, there's also
They're
Verbo.
saying I want a coat, there's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's why this is, the ordinance is titled short-term rental, and that's really what we did is, Airbnb is kind of a shorthand way of.
I put that on here on the agenda because I figured everybody would know what that means versus
That's
short-term rental can imply a few different things.
Just anything in our regulations now prevent an apartment complex from going, I mean, some apartment complexes have short-term rental.
That I can think of, no, though I would think there's something in a tenant's lease with their landlord about subleasing or subletting.
I don't think there's anything that would prevent an apartment building from leasing shorter term than a year or a month, but there
No,
are.
I'm Missing Square does 3-month leases.
3 months, what I
That's-
was referring to, yeah.
But that's
I mean, that-
permitted to be an apartment building,
Yeah.
not and I think your concern is a single family house in a residential neighborhood, and all of a sudden somebody in the middle of the block starts renting their house out, you have different people there every other day.
And that's where I think the limits
Right.
is for the single family dwellings, townhouses, but not, I think apartment buildings, I'm not sure I would take it that far. I mean, that's an area where I think we can be more tolerant.
I would think single family, semi, or townhome.
All not.
Yeah.
You just
Say
say
again, Michelle.
all not multi-family.
Single family.
Yeah.
Semi-detached or townhome.
Our biggest concern is the short term, the shortest of short term rentals, like for the weekend,
Yes,
right?
yeah. I
Figure
would think
it's over
anything less than a
weekend.
week.
It's not a bunch of kids renting it for a week.
So procedurally, what's next? Does this have to be discussed at planning commission?
I would suggest let Chris and I work on tweaking this ordinance to make it work specific to us, bringing it back here for your input, and then once this committee's okay with a final draft, planning commission, we'd have to tweak the zoning ordinance at the same time,
That
so,
would be two ordinances.
yeah. That has to go to the county planning commission, our planning commission, advertise, et cetera.
So if this committee is in support of us working on this, I'm gonna just ask for a motion to direct Michelle and I to prepare a draft of a zoning amendment and a regulatory ordinance on the subject of short-term residential rentals. And we'll bring it back to the committee for further review after we have it drafted.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Comments or questions?
Only comment is I favor myself limiting as much as we can limit it, because I just don't think it's economically developed area as a whole.
When we're dealing with the reality of the world we're in, they're out there, try to keep up some kind of handle on it.
I think my life is forced enough to deal with things that I want to do with.
Well, it ain't gonna get any better. Well, in order to get to define what you're describing, we need to get to the next step, so I
Right,
think we
right.
need to have this thing. You know, if it does reach the point of fruition of getting this established, then we can do an article in the newsletter or whatever, and then put the community on notice about it. And that's one less reason that they can say, oh, I didn't know.
Just some areas of the borough where there's pockets of little tiny apartment complexes. Berkshire Heights area, some places over there that we gotta be careful of, and bad enough as it is.
All right, any further comment? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. In your So the other things that you wanted to talk about today, is that considered old business or what?
I was gonna bring it up under old business, at least the Wyomissing Square Lurda, because
Yeah.
we've talked about it multiple times.
All right, then, old business.
So I've been working with Greg Heflin and John Connors from Brickstone Development, not to be confused with Brickstone Restaurant that is no longer in business where Viva was. They're working with RP Management, which is the company that owns the apartment complex at Wyomissing Square, to put together a deal and partnership, for lack of a better term, with Brickstone and RP to develop the vacant retail space underneath Wyomissing Square. They will actually be coming to the May Economic Development Committee meeting and possibly the May Fire and Police Committee meeting to talk about a mid-block crosswalk and the project as a whole. But what I wanted to give this committee an update on is the frustrating conversations I've been having with the county solicitor and county tax assessment office regarding the borough, school district, and county positions on the application of the LRTA. One of the developers, I should say one of the owners from RP Management, spoke with the county tax assessment office 2 weeks ago and was told that the LRTA was expired. So Greg Heflin from Brickstone called me, was a bit frantic because this deal is predicated on the LRTA being in place. I said, you know, that's absolutely not the borough's position. I pulled the LRTA ordinance, the memorandum of understanding.
Perhaps you ought to make sure the committee is all up to speed on the basics of that.
Does everyone understand?
When Wyomissing Square was developed, in order for the developers to obtain financing for the overall project, they needed a tax situation. And the LRTA is being developed. This particular one was rather unique, but it was set up for a 10-year LRTA to be, the starting point was the use and occupancy permit. When they were able to start utilizing it, then the clock started ticking on the 10 years. And it would incrementally go up over time. The assessment would go up over time. It never started because as the project came to fruition, the Great Recession kicked in, everything ground to a halt.
Well, that's not entirely true. There's 5 condo units at Wyomissing Square. So the LRTA has started and expired on 4 of the 5 condo units. The retail portion is the one area it's not ever started because no certificate of occupancy has been issued. So the borough's position and the school district's position that we've expressed to the county solicitor and county tax assessment office is there's no sunset provision in the LRTA documents. The LRTA does not start for the retail portion until the certificate of occupancy is issued, which has not happened. The county seems to have heartburn about that for some reason. I was told 2 weeks ago I'd have a final determination from them. Then I was told last week, then I was told this week, now I'm being told next week. And this is preventing the transaction from closing. So after yet another conversation yesterday of getting nowhere, I reached out to Commissioner Barnhart and Pam Shook from the county's Economic Development Department this morning with some background information and just said, can we talk? You know, the county pushes economic development, wanting to be pro-developer friendly, and this is anything but, and I don't understand why the county's taking the position that it has, or where any of the confusion is coming from on the county's end, since they have the same documents that we have, and they can look back at the assessment record and see it hasn't changed.
So they're paying taxes based on pre-renovation assessment.
Correct. And then once the
Now they wanna reassess, because the LRTA is only for the difference between the pre-renovation and post-renovation,
correct.
for spread over 10 years. So if your assessment goes up $100,000, your taxes are $10,000 a year. So they're only paying based on pre-renovation. And then, but it's all renovated now?
No. They haven't even pulled a building permit yet. I mean, at this point, Brickstone is not gonna sell to RP. RP's not gonna buy until they have a determination from the county that, well, they wanted confirmation from the 3 taxing bodies that the LRTA was still effective. So they have it from, in my eyes, what are the 2 biggest taxing authorities, the school district and the borough. Greg Heflin and I talked about that yesterday, worst case scenario, the county's not on board, he doesn't think it's a deal breaker because that percentage of the overall taxes is not significant, but it's still frustrating. The other piece, I know you know from finance meetings some of the issues that Betsy's been having with the assessment office and the new software that they put into place. We received the reassessment value for the Drexel University College of Medicine, so the certificate of occupancy was issued on that building in May of '21. Assessed value went from 6 million to over 30 million. That reassessed value only became effective January 1st of '22. So we lost 6 months of tax revenue at 30 million plus increase because that's how long it's taking the tax assessment office to get their paperwork in order. So I mean, that's one of the other things I wanna talk to the commissioner about.
That's consistent though.
Yeah.
The county has
Really?
always done, whenever there are reassessments, it's effective for the next
Next year.
tax.
Yeah, they do interims all the time.
Yeah, we get interims all the time with reductions that they're quick to issue.
When the county assessment board issues a new assessment, it's effective the next tax year.
Well, I could just, we get
That's all right.
interims that we discuss at finance all the time, and we just talked about one that was an overall 30,000 reduction that we just got.
Interims are on, I believe, new.
No, these were appeals. These were appeals that went through the tax assessment board. And in one case, they went back 2 years. Like, we had to issue a refund for 20 and 21 taxes.
Well, then there is an issue because the understanding over the years has been that's effective the next.
Yeah, I thought the one you go back to on is if you did improvements and they bumped you up and you appealed it and they were wrong, then you gotta go back. Cause like I appealed 1011 North Park Road based on what we bought it for, and that didn't go into effect until '22.
I think it's worth complaining about anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, for that kind of money, I'd make it money.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you talked about 5 condo units. What are the
Yeah.
5 condo units?
Apartments, retail, hotel, Stratix office, and Headinger's piece that was the restaurant Brickstone Viva.
And along the line, the whole,
That's part
That's
of,
the retail.
that's the reason.
yeah.
They were not LERTAs available on all those 5. I know the office building didn't have LERTA eligibility. I don't remember if Brickstone Restaurant did either. I mean, I think the LERTA was the hotel, the apartments,
And the
and
retail.
the retail.
So that's more of an FYI, no action needed, just wanted to give you an update.
And there's just, we've gone through this here, Bill, when the hotel midway through the LERTA was sold. And all of a sudden, a new value by virtue of the sale came into play, and what, were we crazy, we're giving them a tax break, and they just sold it for this many bazillion dollars. And I think that our word as a municipality has to have some validity. I mean, we made a deal. That project would not have happened, period, if it wasn't for the LERTA. And now we conveniently look the other way is just bad business. And that's just not the way we operate.
I'm just glad the school's the same idea as we are.
Yeah, that's refreshing.
That's kind of.
At the end
It's
of the
like,
day, I
wow.
think we all want the same thing, which is to see it finally developed, not only so it's a service and amenity to the neighborhood and community, but so our tax revenue increases
Sure.
on it.
I complain too, just for that.
That's all I got.
All right, does anyone have any other old business? Last item on our agenda then is new business. Does anybody
I
have?
will mention some other old business. Understand this, wrestling, whatever you wanna call it, or not wrestling, boxing thing at the mall is open.
Since when? 'Cause I was just in there last week. And
I-
where?
I was told yesterday it's down by, towards Sears.
Cease and desist notice it is, okay.
How's the boxing thing?
How's the boxing?
some kind
Like Fight
of,
Club?
Price fight.
yeah.
I need to go there after.
How many price fights in the world?
And they actually
Well, I have
had
an occasion
some,
video all the time.
some popular professional boxers coming or was there or to, you know.
That somewhat surprises me. Kayla Gorman, who's the mall manager, is not very good at some things, but she is very good at following up with tenants that are interested and saying, there's a whole approval process you need to go through with the borough before you do anything. The fire marshal, the zoning officer have to come in and inspect, you know, you need a business privilege license, this, that, and the other thing. So
Yeah, I heard,
I'll
The-
follow up with her.
you know, this came from the assistant manager of Things Remember. Her mother told me that it's open.
Troy and I were just in there last week for a CO
Is this in a
inspection.
store? In
Yeah,
a former store?
yeah.
Creepy.
That's weird. While we're on the topic of the mall, I received a complaint from a resident about the former mobile gas station turning into a truck stop. So I reached out to Kayla about that, cause I had noticed a tractor trailer parked there a day or, and that's always been an issue, Boscov's, I mean, I remember when Joe Nasty, when Allied still owned it, I'd reach out to Joe Nasty and just be like, hey, what's going on with the trucks? They were typically there for Boscov's, either receiving or removing, some type of merchandise from the store. They'd be there for 12 to 36 hours. Kayla's telling me they're having a problem securing the parking lot, that these truck drivers just show up and drop their trucks on the parking lot and leave. And she's reached out to the police department and was told they couldn't assist, and I'm like, well, it's your private property, you have a right to tow the vehicle. I'd suggest you put signs up that say parking for Berkshire Mall tenants and customers only.
No overnight parking.
No overnight parking, and I said if they're there for longer than 7 days, Chief Phillips did confirm we can start the abandoned vehicle process, but not our problem, your problem, and you have full rights as a private property owner to remove said vehicles
It's
at any
matter-
point in time.
It's a matter of enforcement authority too.
There's also, in the past 2 days, I guess, there's a Facebook site called Growing Up in Wyomissing. And all of a sudden, all these pictures of the mall mobile station are popping up. What's going on with this? Why doesn't the borough do anything with it? Other people are blaming the mall, people are blaming the borough, people are blaming Boscov's. I mean, so, it's really gotten ridiculous.
I think the frustrating part, what's going on with the mall is probably the question I get asked the most. Getting people to understand that the current owner did not buy it for anything other than basically an offshore safe holding place for their money, and that there's no intent or push pressure to redevelop it. I don't know how you get that information out to the public. I mean, short of including it on a water bill, yes, we're aware the Berkshire Mall needs help, we're trying.
Don't they have security?
They do. She's saying they're having a problem securing the Sears end of the parking lot too. But same thing, they have security, they have the ability to tow a vehicle that is parked on their private property.
On the other hand, while there's nothing at this point that I would deem to be reportable or thought about, there continues to be interest expressed in the property. There are people talking about things. Some out of town, some local. Different aspects of people recognizing it's a terrific location and there are lots of opportunities here. So it hasn't sat, it's not sitting dormant. So I think that's encouraging. So one last time, any other old business? And then how about any new business? Anyone? If not, we shall stand adjourned.
When was this Berkshire?
Murray Goodman would roll over today.
Yeah.
You haven't even 20 years ago,